Who in childhood did not dream of going to the ball and did not envy Natasha Rostova? Just imagine, you are in a beautiful dress, dancing with a gallant gentleman who is crazy about you. There are beautiful faces all around, luxury, brilliance, the emperor and the empress. In general, romance. But why would you actually run away from there to the ends of the earth? Why was it better not to look in the mirror at the ball? Then the imperial ball in the winter, you are simply shocked. And what are you so tormented by diamonds? How the ladies in magnificent dresses solved the toilet problem, what smelled at the balls and how they died because of them. So what was the underside of the brilliant imperial ball in the Russian Empire? But before that, friends, I want to tell you something. In the 19th century, noblewomen, of course, went to balls, but in fact they could not manage their lives in any way. They could only influence the color of their dresses, and even then not always. Today, the gap between the professional realization of women and men and their financial independence has greatly decreased. I quote, "I got up at 10. All morning I was fixing diamonds on board and kokoschniks. So infernally tired that there is no urine. I feel like a broken horse, disgusting. I was crying at breakfast, the tears were flowing, and I couldn't do anything." She left around 6 o'clock. "I was trying on a suit at home. Despondency. Madly tired. These are the hardships of being." This is what the Grand Duchess Xenia Alexandrovna writes in her diary before the famous ball of 1903. She continues on the day of the ball. "Ivanova, the freak, sent my dress at 7:15 and I still had to sew stones. I was desperate, I thought I'd never be ready. Finally I was clothed, stones sewn in abyss. The heaviness is great." But Xenia Alexandrovna was still lucky. The dress was very heavy, but it suited her. But the heroine of the novel Marriage, which is not enough, was less lucky on Dina Zelentsova. When the dress was brought before the ball, I quote, "It turned out that the bodice was too wide at the waist, and the white flowers did not go at all to her dark skin." The poor woman was so angry at the failure with the dress that she almost had a hysterical fit. You will say, he is mad with fat. Now imagine what happened when the invitation to the ball came late. So it was in October, 1831, when Nicholas I and his wife unexpectedly arrived in Moscow. The noble ladies only received a printed notice on Saturday evening, on the eve of the ball, that they should appear in a Russian dress and, moreover, with a certain kind of sleeves, which no one had. An eyewitness wrote, "Oh, my God, what a movement in Moscow. Saturday night to Sunday, the whole fair sex was on duty. No one slept a wink. Immediately all the velvet in the shops was sold out. 200 seamstresses and 500 maids spent the night sewing, while we, for whom they worked, ran to our friends to inquire about the shape of the sleeves and the length of the train. Happy are those who were able to get a good sample." As a result of all this, many ladies are not ready and many others seem somewhat tastelessly dressed, with tired eyes and leaden complexion. As a result, there were not so many ladies at the presentation ceremony of the Empress, because they did not have time to sew all the Russian dresses. Keep in mind that the slightest violations in the costume were immediately noticed by the Emperor and Empress and expressed personal disapproval. An endless series of balls and festivities and new ball gowns could literally ruin the whole family. One of the ladies complains that in order to sew a new dress for the ball for her daughter, she had to sell an excellent maid. What can we say about outfits from designers? A dress from a fashionable Viennese or Parisian designer, for example, Charles Worth, cost then like the annual salary of an ordinary court footman. Pit ball, which often lasted until 3 or 4 in the morning, it was extremely rare to get enough sleep. According to the 19th century philosopher Mikhail Sherbatov, the ladies, I quote, were forced to sleep sitting up until the day of departure, so as not to spoil the headdress. At the end of the 18th century, they built such wonderful constructions from their own hair on their heads. They were called fontanges. They were made a few days before the ball, and they had to sleep in them exclusively sitting down. Yes, it is necessary to place cages for rats next to the hairstyle, so that those attracted by the smell of fat, which held the structure like glue, did not get into the hairstyle itself. Add to this the insects that also lived in it and which it was impossible to even get to, at least to scratch. Besides, such a hairstyle is also the death of the case. The undisputed winner in the nomination, the biggest score in Russia, is the ball of Prince Grigory Potemkin, a favorite of Empress Catherine II. Then 5,000 people gathered in the ballroom of the Tauride Palace. Add to this the orchestra and numerous servants. The ballroom of the Tauride Palace was considered the largest in Europe, but for him such a number of people was too much. It was unbearably cramped, there was literally nothing to breathe. In addition to the guests, thousands of candles and stove heating absorbed oxygen at an unprecedented rate. The guests fainted. Note that they were also in incredibly tight corsets. As fashion historians have found out, in that era, the corset prevented 12% of the air from entering the lungs of poor ladies. As a result, after dancing, they fainted. That's why the indispensable accessories at the ball were such a box with smelling salts to bring to life. Add to the lack of oxygen the wild heat in the ballroom due to candle or lamp lighting. The cavaliers, dressed in a tailcoat and dancing vigorously, sweated wildly and dirtied the ladies' dress with wet hands. Hence the rule appeared, gloves are not removed at the ball, even if they burst. The rule applied to both ladies and gentlemen. This, of course, did not make life easier. Imagine, in the same fashion, also wearing gloves. In 1890, officers who took off their gloves on the court floor were even arrested. A fan was used as an air conditioner, but it didn't help much. In this heat at the balls, all the makeup dripped onto the clothes. And now imagine red and black smudges on a layer of powder or whitewash. And imagine how the noble ladies and gentlemen looked during the ball. Yeah, not the best way to find a fiancé. According to John Evelyn, who visited the ball at the King of England Charles II, Queen Catherine of Braganza's scarlet blush, spread out from the heat, stained her neck and lace collar. Mascara also caused a lot of problems for the ladies, you heard right. And she became popular thanks to the wife of Napoleon III, Empress Eugenie. That's just a fashionable remedy at the very first ball failed miserably, leaving on the face of fashionistas greasy black circles around the eyes and all over the face. So now imagine what those most beautiful faces looked like. If you think that in the gallant age you danced gracefully and unhurriedly, then again you are greatly mistaken. There were a lot of dances, and everything went strictly in order. Polonaise, waltz, polka, moose, galop, France, Catalan. And now imagine, the Polonaise, in which many balls were opened in Imperial Russia, lasted from half an hour. Quadrille, a little less. At the beginning of the 19th century, the mazurka came into fashion. Lady-in-waiting Empress Alexandra Smirnova Russet recalled, quote, "The chic of the mazurka consists in the fact that the gentleman takes the lady on his chest, immediately hitting himself with his heel in the center of gravity, not to say ass, flies to the other end of the hall and says, Mazuraka, Pani, add to him, Mazuraka, Pan." So, the mazurka is a real cardio workout, which lasted, again, I quote, 2 hours, calculated by fate to his chosen ones as a deposit of the happiness of a lifetime, according to one of the heroes of the story of that time. In general, instead of smoothly sliding on the parquet floors, I had to jump vigorously. The lady-in-waiting Ekaterina Sishkova, viciously deceived by Lermontov, was outraged by the Moscow balls. The ladies are not graceful enough in dancing, they jump too hard. Imagine what it's like to jump madly for 2 hours, being chained in a corset, and even in a heavy long dress. Another lady-in-waiting, Maria Volkova, complains to her friend in a letter, "There is a ball every day. Sometimes 2 or 3 in one evening. Of course, I don't go to everything, but in 2 days, once I have to dance for 6 or 7 hours without rest. Physically, I do not suffer from sleepless nights, but my moral strength weakens, my head becomes heavy, I am completely like a fool for days." The tradition of such frenzied winter balls remained until the end of the 19th century. So, Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich writes about the ball of 1877 at the Tsarevich, the future Alexander III. Catel and he were mad, going crazy, spinning, raging endlessly. At the end, they ran and fell exhausted on chairs, so that after a few minutes they could jump around the hall again. I sweated 20 times, the handkerchiefs were wet rags. We finished after 4 o'clock in the morning. Now imagine how it smelled at the ball. It was possible to ventilate the ballroom after a social event for hours. There were no deodorants yet, they appeared only at the end of the 19th century. I had to use perfumes, which, I must say, were very persistent. You would go crazy from such smells. In addition, everything was perfumed with them. There were even perfumes for fur from Alphonse Raleigh. Before the ball, the aristocrats washed themselves with scented water. There was a smell of powders and lipsticks for hair, perfume-soaked fans to flavor the air, but the smell of sweat was impossible to kill. Keep in mind that the gallant cavaliers smelled not only of cologne water, but also of yuftia. This is high-quality Russian tanned leather soaked in birch tar. Boots were made from it. The aroma is strong and specific. By the way, the smell of yufti became one of the symbols of Russia in that era. The parquet, which was rubbed with special mastic before the ball, one of the components that smelled no better than tar, brought its notes to this indescribable smelly mixture. When horseshoes and high boots appeared, the cavaliers knocked them so loudly that, according to the memoirs of contemporaries, they could drown out the music. In general, some kind of hell. Here is a cartoon of 1853 from the English magazine Punch. The girl before the trip to the ball and after were torn, as well as not from the dress, which was repeatedly stepped on by the cavaliers. Yes, the most important thing at the ball is not to look in the mirror. But Princess Maria Bariatinskaya, the wife of a childhood friend of Nicholas II, once looked. She told about this case in her memoirs already in exile, so she remembered this incident. It was at the ball on the occasion of the coronation of Nicholas II. It was terribly hot, and ladies fainted in the church. When the princess tried to sit down to catch her breath and skip at least one dance, she was severely reprimanded by the emperor's aunt, the Duchess of Coburg. Like, it doesn't matter that it's too hot, there's no strength to dance. It doesn't matter, you are young, if everyone thinks that, then there will be no one to dance, and you have to dance, especially in cases like this. Moreover, the emperor's aunt gave her an example of the 70-year-old Prince of Saxe-Weimar. This is an old-school man, he dances all evening at the age of 75. It was after that Maria Bariatinskaya looked at herself in the mirror. What did the brilliant socialite see in the midst of the court ball in honor of the coronation, who had been preparing for it for a long time before this very ball? I quote, "My face was crimson, my curled hair straightened from the heat the day before, and my bangs stuck out like stubble." It's hard to even imagine what the dress looked like. In general, going to a ball in the 19th century was a serious test for health and a rather dangerous occupation. It was perceived as a tedious social duty, not as a pleasure. By midnight, the stuffiness was so unbearable that the brilliant ball turned into a wet one. The aristocrats' outfits were soaked through with sweat. And now keep in mind that the balls were held in the coldest time of the year. The girls, heated by dancing, dressed in the latest Parisian fashion in the thinnest muslin dress, then sat in ice carriages and fell ill. The socialite Maria Volkova, already familiar to us, writes to her friends, "It's nice to dance once every 2 weeks, but it's unbearable to spin so often. My health is suffering." And health really suffered. Colds, pneumonia, miscarriages, that's what endless points cost the aristocrats. You will say that you would have refused to do something, and that's all. It was impossible to refuse the ball, so as not to offend the influential hosts. And those who often referred to indisposition could be excommunicated from the light altogether. The same Maria Volkova writes in another letter, "This year many paid for dancing. Poor Princess Shakovskaya is dangerously ill. Your little Countess Bobrinskaya is dying as a result of a cold she caught at a ball." And this is from another letter of hers. You've probably heard of Sasha Davidova, a lovely and full of talents girl whom everyone loved so much. She passed away last year, shortly after the ball at the Noble Assembly. Even men could not stand it all. What can we say about the ladies? Ferdinand Christian complains to Princess Turkestanova in correspondence. "This week is a real torture, incessant balls, performances, masquerades. Please pray for me. There is something to die from if such a life continues." But the Russian diplomat Yakov Bulgakov writes to his son, "Now it's Maslenitsa, every day for 2-3 points masquerades. I don't understand how young people are alive." Candles and chandeliers caused a lot of problems to those who came to the ball. They melted, wax dripped on the naked shoulders of the ladies. It was very painful and they often left the ball with burns. And it was also possible to burn at the ball in the literal sense of the word. Death by fire due to Coraline was quite common. Lancet magazine published data in 1860. 3,000 women were burned in a year. Lush crinolines took up so much space that they fell into fireplaces, then candles fell on them. As a result, the beauties flared up and burned in an instant. In 1863, 14-year-old Margaret Davy broke out at the ball. Her hem fell on the grate. They didn't have time to help her, everything happened instantly. Also at the ball, the first wife of the famous poet Henry Longfellow burned down, and the half-sisters of the equally famous Oscar Wilde burned both when one dress caught fire, and the other rushed to her aid. Now about the toilets. The winter toilet appeared under Alexander II, but it was not easy for the ladies to use it during the ball. Therefore, there were such devices for the lady bourdaloue. This is such a portable toilet for both the carriage and for going to the ball. Although in full skirts and corsets and bourdaloues ladies could not use without help. They were helped by maids in a special room, supporting skirts from several sides. In general, it was an incredibly expensive pleasure to organize a ball, and only the richest families could afford it. The ladies' dressing room alone was worth a fortune.